Good morning, I'm Sophia Gomez.
I'm Sofia Saiz.
I'm Angelisa Fernandez.
And I'm Mariah Fajardo, and today we will be presenting the accessibility to abortion in America.
Ever since the United States Supreme Court case of Roe v. Wade in 1973, abortion has been established as a woman's legal right protected by the Constitution's 14th Amendment. This amendment outlaws a person being denied liberty by the states without due process of law. An individual can end a pregnancy without unwarranted opposition from the government because this right to liberty includes the right to make choices about family and the right to bodily integrity. Although abortion has been established a right since 1973, there has been a significant problem with the amount of abortion providers available to women in the United States, which leads us to our claim.
Accessibility to abortion has been unfairly limited in the United States due to political, ethical, social, and health factors.
Our group's solution is to pass legislation that would guarantee accessibility to abortion across the United States, similar to the Each Woman Act, also known as equal coverage to abortion in health insurance. This bill was proposed to the House of Representatives in 2017, and although it did not pass, if a similar bill were introduced and it did pass, it would solve the issue of unfair accessibility in America. One of the prevailing issues throughout the history of the United States is the conflict arising between the separation of state and federal laws. This issue is all too prevalent in the case of abortion. So who has jurisdiction? The Supreme Court found in 1973, with the landmark Supreme Court case, Roe v. Wade, that abortion is indeed legal. However, it has not been enforced, which allows states to create laws that further create a disparity for the accessibility of abortion. These laws are called Targeted Regulation of Abortion Providers, or TRAP laws. A Kansas TRAP law was intended to shut down the only 3 clinics in the state, and Pennsylvania SB 732 made it nearly impossible for clinics to operate, forcing them to shut down. This slide shows states that have restrictions and others that do not. Activism has a surprisingly large role in limiting abortion. In the United States, it is our legal right to protest under the First Amendment. However, we must question whether the way things are protested are morally correct. Anti-abortion protesters often use volatile language and images in order to guilt and shame women who attempt to get abortions. Because of this, Florida created a 36-foot buffer zone between anti-abortion protesters and abortion clinics in order to protect the privacy rights of those in clinics. The Supreme Court found this to be excessive, ruling that it was a threat to protesters' rights. Despite being clearly legal, one simply cannot deny that due to feeling threatened, accessibility to abortion has been limited to women. So why limit abortion? Planned Parenthood, a nonprofit organization that provides sexual health care, found that there is overwhelming support amongst Americans for the decision made by Roe v. Wade, including Democrats, Republicans, and Catholics. So, abortion is as much a political debate as it is an ethical one.
In the abortion debate, religious and moral views have often affected people's opinions and decisions towards terminating a pregnancy. This slide shows a frequently repeated issue between the church and government about the personhood of the fetus. To start, religions often do not allow abortions, but some may offer it to a certain point into the pregnancy. For example, Buddhism does not allow abortions because it is a deliberate killing of the human life. The Islamic religion does allow abortions, but only up to 120 days into the pregnancy. Moral views may also affect the decision. Many people argue that fetuses must be part of the moral community in order for it to have a right to life. For the fetus to have a right to life, then it must be considered a person. This brings me to my next slide. The real question in this abortion debate is, when is the fetus considered a person? Well, people have often argued about this. 2 philosophers, Simmer and Sagan, propose that if the end of life ends with the death of brain activity, then it also begins with the beginning of brain activity. The brain does not develop in a pregnancy to the 4th week, which is the first trimester shown in the first picture, the second trimester shown in the second picture, and third trimester shown in the third picture. Mary Warren, on the other hand, said that Mary Warren, a specialist in abortion, states that the fetus will never be considered human because the main components of a human is consciousness, reasoning, and capacity to communicate. Moral and religious views affect the accessibility women have to abortion. Religious views set the right, the wrong, the good, the bad, the just, and unjust. These views contribute to the indecisiveness women have. Moral views have shown to have the largest societal impact. people attribute humanity to the fetus, then it gives it strong intrinsic value, making it harder to terminate the pregnancy. These ethical and moral views that many hold contribute to the social outlook on abortion.
To put things into perspective, 24% of U.S. women have an abortion by the age of 45, and at least 20% of these women live 50 or more miles from their nearest abortion provider. 39% of U.S. women of reproductive age currently live in a state with no abortion provider. Abortion services are highly concentrated in metropolitan areas, meaning that women living in rural areas have more limited access to abortion services. Reproductive health care a woman can receive is highly dependent on where a woman lives. According to this map from the Guttmacher Institute, in 2017, 29 states were considered hostile or extremely hostile to abortion rights, leaving only 12 being supportive. The last 7 years account for 34% of the 1,193 abortion restrictions enacted since Roe v. Wade in 1973. 58% of American women of reproductive age live in a state that aren't supportive of abortion rights, leaving 30% of women living in the state that are supportive of abortion rights. This leads us to our scientific glance.
When considering health in the subject of abortion, an argument that is often brought up is when is a fetus considered viable? Fetal viability refers to a viable pregnancy, which is defined as one in which a fetus can be born and have a reasonable chance of survival outside of the womb. Viability has been found to be at 23 to 24 weeks into a pregnancy, which is prior to when the pregnancy enters the third trimester at around 28 weeks. In relation, late-term abortions account for 1% of abortions performed in the United States and are usually only performed when the health or life of a woman is believed to be at risk. However, some states impose varying prohibitions on abortion that make it increasingly difficult for a woman to receive one despite the possibility of needing one later into their pregnancy. In fact, as of this year, 43 states limit abortion at a certain point in a pregnancy, 24 imposing prohibitions at a certain number of weeks into a pregnancy, 17 at fetal viability, and 2 at the start of the third trimester. These prohibitions make it difficult for a woman to receive an abortion that could potentially save her life, not to mention the fact that very few doctors even are willing to perform a later-term abortion.
This leads us to our group solution of passing legislation to guarantee accessibility to abortion across America. Our group found this to be the most optimal solution for our issue because our other solutions did not touch upon the accessibility of abortion in America. Although we found the solution to be the best, it still has many limitations.
The time it could take to pass a bill through legislation could take months. And there are limitations regarding how long a bill can be discussed upon. This prompts the possibility of there not being enough time, and it may lead to misunderstandings and the inability to decide upon the bill. The bill would also have to pass through the House of Representatives and the Senate, which only makes it more difficult for it to be passed.
This concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Let me ask you a couple of questions. Angelisa, describe the content, how the content of the team presentation was changed as a result of your group discussion.
So initially, our group solution was to increase the amount of sexual education in adolescents in high school or middle school, and to increase the use of contraceptives. But as we discussed while doing the actual project, we realized that that doesn't really solve the problem of accessibility to abortion. So we decided to go with the more political lens in revising Roe v. Wade and making it more specific to include when an abortion should be legal and making it equally accessible to all women in the United States.
Okay, Sophia Saiz, thank you. Sophia, what is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own individual research?
Our team's resolution makes me see limitations regarding the ethical lens. Ethically, you won't be able to provide a solution. A solution to ethical, there's never going to be one because people will always be either against it or for abortion. So our team's resolution was to redesign Roe v. Wade to better define the personhood of a fetus. That changed my thing.
Okay, thank you. Mariah, what is an example of a compelling argument from one of your peers' individual reports that you decided to exclude from your team presentation and why?
While conducting individual research reports, we did not exclude any counter arguments or anything or discussions out of the project. I believe we included everything that we had researched upon.
Okay, thank you. And Sofia Gomez, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Sofia Sai's findings.
Sophia Sai's lens, the ethical lens, contributed to my own thinking on the topic of accessibility to abortion in the United States, because one of the points she made in her individual research report was about the personhood of a fetus, and there was a philosopher that she researched, Judith Thompson, who wrote a book, A Defense of Abortion, where she outlined that even if a fetus were to be considered a person, its life is still not above that of the mother's life, and if the mother chooses so, she could still terminate the fetus because she is under no obligation to carry it full term. And this changed my thinking because it gives me insight as to the ambiguous way that laws are written, especially Roe versus Wade, and not defining personhood, and gave me insight as to the pro-choice versus pro-life debate and what they are arguing over.
Okay, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.